Good evening, and welcome to all you fine folks who made it out to Facets this evening for this presentation of holiday horror. My name is Bill Van Ryn, and I'm the editor of fanzine Drive-In Asylum, and I'm so pleased that Facets invited me to co-host tonight's double feature of killer Santa movies, the first of which was so controversial in its day that TriStar Pictures, the maker of the movie, decided to have it pulled from theaters only about a week into its release. I'm talking, of course, about 1984 slasher film Silent Night, Deadly Night. Now, this was not the first movie that depicted Santa as a homicidal maniac, because I'm sure you all remember the 1972 film Tales from the Crypt, where poor Joan Collins was just throttled by a homicidal maniac dressed as Santa Claus. That didn't bother anybody in 1972. There were no picketers. Nobody went on TV talk shows complaining about Santa being depicted as a slasher because they understood in 1972 it was just a movie. Well, in 1984, people were a lot more sensitive. There was a housewife in Milwaukee who was watching a football game, and she saw a TV trailer for Silent Night, Deadly Night. And even though her two young children were not in the room, she was so outraged that a company would make a movie calling Santa Claus a murderer that she decided to do something about it. And she took to the streets picketing the debut of Silent Night, Deadly Night in her local theater. And she also ignited a media firestorm that became so huge, even Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert were talking about it on their TV show. And you know how outraged those two got about horror movies. This was no exception. They were naming names on their program, complaining to these people, saying, "How dare you make a movie like Silent Night, Deadly Night, the movie you're about to watch?" So let's take a look at the ad campaign that triggered so many people in 1984. I'm going to begin with these ads from Chicago. This is when it opened almost nationwide, November 9th. And you can see how TriStar Pictures just went right for it with this ad depicting Santa as an axe-wielding maniac. How dare they do something like this? It's a disgrace. Here are some more movies that we're showing at the same time, just for some context. Now, the success of Halloween is an obvious influence on the creation of Silent Night, Deadly Night. In fact, you can see it right there in the tagline. But there were other Christmas horror movies by this point, not even counting Black Christmas, which did not have a killer Santa in it. There were two killer Santa movies made in 1980, Christmas Evil and To All a Good Night. However, neither of those two movies had the money that this movie had behind it. They didn't have the distribution, and not as many people knew about them. Plus, even though A Nightmare on Elm Street was a big success right at the same time as this movie was released, 1984 was very late to make a slasher movie, and more importantly, the notion that horror movies were the downfall of society had had years and years to fester, so when this movie was released, it all just came pouring out. It's also worth noting that the movie didn't totally disappear from theaters just when TriStar pulled all the promotion for it. Here it is in December 1984 with Supergirl. Damn her eyes. A distributor called Aquarius Films released Silent Night, Deadly Night again in 1985. Here it is in June of that year in Hartford. Oh my god, with Dawn of the Dead? Take my money now. And Aquarius were much more sleazy than TriStar. They knew what to do with this kind of a movie. You market it like what it is, an exploitation film with a tabloid ad campaign. Thanks once again for coming out. We're glad you're here. We hope this movie terrifies you and you go straight home, lock your doors, bolt your windows, and board up your chimneys. Here's Silent Night, Deadly Night. Welcome to the second half of our Killer Santa double feature here at Facets. I'm Bill Van Ryn, editor of fanzine Drive-In Asylum. I really hope you enjoyed the first one we showed you, Silent Night, Deadly Night. Those of you who didn't like it, I hope you're out in front of the theater picketing. I know some people from Milwaukee who are just dying to meet you. The second movie tonight is Dial Code Santa, aka Deadly Games. It's a French film from 1989, and I don't have any newsprint ads to show you from this one, so what I did instead is I put together a gallery of my top 3 favorite Christmas horror films. So let's look at some ads right now. I couldn't make a list like this and not mention Bob Clark's 1974 film Black Christmas, which remains one of the creepiest films I've ever seen, let alone Christmas movies. Black Christmas is just plain scary. I love it when a movie has more than one title, and Black Christmas was one of those. After being released in Canada under the original title in September of '74, it played the States as Silent Night, Evil Night. Now, this was in July of '75, so they had to come up with a tagline that explained this by saying, "Christmas is coming early this year, and it's murder." At some point, it reverted back to its original title in the United States, and it played various cities under both titles. Maybe the creepiest title it had was when it first appeared on pay cable in June of '77 as Stranger in the House. And this is the title that it kept when NBC bought the rights to broadcast it on network television at the end of January 1978. Unfortunately, there was a series of brutal crimes at Florida State University that were eerily similar to the ones committed in the movie. A lot of people complained, and NBC ended up pushing the film back a couple of months. The crimes turned out to be the work of none other than Ted Bundy. Christmas Massacre? What movie is that? Well, the answer is a movie with a whole bunch of different names. It's an Italian riff on Last House on the Left that was also known in the States as Last Stop on the Night Train, among numerous other titles, including The New House on the Left. Shameless. Now, just like its namesake, this is a brutal film. In fact, I think this is a lot nastier than The Last House on the Left, personally. It also has the novelty of having the evil ringleader be a woman. And trust me, you don't ever want to get on a train with her. She's mean. The Christmas connection is extremely vague, and some marketing genius deserves a gold star for this one. And what about that co-feature, Silent Night, Bloody Night? Well, that's my third and final pick. You know how some movies are like watching somebody else's nightmare? That's Silent Night, Bloody Night to me. It's about the people of a small town who all have a connection to this creepy old abandoned mansion that used to be an insane asylum. A killer is picking off members of the cast while family skeletons keep falling out of closets left and right. And that's what Christmas is all about. The movie was first released in '72 as Night of the Dark Full Moon, but then in 1973 it got a new title, Silent Night, Bloody Night. Most astonishingly of all, it got recycled in 1981 during the slasher boom and was reissued as Death House. Unlike Last Stop on the Night Train, this movie really does have some Christmas connections, including some carols that we hear on the radio and a great sequence where we see cult icon Mary Warnoff sitting in front of her Christmas tree wrapping presents on Christmas Eve. And if Mary Warnoff can't get you in the holiday spirit, nothing can. I want to say thanks to everyone for coming out tonight for this special evening of Santa Mayhem. Thanks to John McDevitt and Facets for involving me. I've had a great time. I hear there are some copies of Drive-In Asylum floating around out there that John had to give away for trivia prizes. If you want to catch up with me and my work, you can visit driveinasylum.com. It's got links to all my social media and places where you can pick up the magazine. But for now, get set for Dial Code Santa from 1989, also known as Deadly Games. And we hope you enjoy it and have a Merry Christmas.